Welcome, everyone. This is episode number 6 of the Art Block podcast. As always, it is me, Luis Antonio Pichardo, the host, co-host, founder, executive director of DSTL Arts, joined by Abraham Jaramillo, our master teaching artist, and so much more. And today we're joined also by Miss Susie Chavez, or Susan Chavez, as the full name says, right? Yeah. And you did provide us with a couple versions of your bio, so I think I'm gonna do kind of like a quick little overview. We do have the pleasure of knowing Miss Susie now for many years as one of our Conchas y Café participants, as well as also a participant in a number of our Creative Impact Workshops series, as they're now called, and also you have been a contributor to our artistic zine as a family member of an individual with autism. And you are also one of our mentees in our Poet Artist Development Program, and a featured artist on Longing for the Moon. You did the cover art here for David Fallon's book, and you are also in the process of developing your own chapbook or children's book, currently titled Little Shoes.
Yes.
And also, you have been an educator, a social justice warrior, poetess, and just so many other amazing things that just based on the people who we've had the pleasure of meeting, who know you as well. Aside from us, we can say that it's truly an honor to have you on the podcast, and to just simply know you because you're such an awesome person.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, how do you manage with that much stuff? How do you manage your time?
Your time? And you just have to make time. What's your priority, or try to do it, organize it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's what attracts me. Whatever I get, because of the things I've been doing with you, because all of it attracts me. So I want to be there and I want to produce. And you nurture creativity. You nurture reflection and thinking on the world and our role in it. So that's what draws me to it and keeps me there.
There you go. Have to make time.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You directed it at us, in terms of like the supporting of it. But we do genuinely, or at least, for us, Abraham and myself, and Angie, who's behind the camera today, we all have had a very impactful experience knowing you, and having the opportunity to see your artwork develop. And one of the things that you mentioned in one of the bios that you sent was that art for you has been a way to explore things like your mental health and feeling empowered and things like that. And
right.
It would be great to just kind of, from your point of view, understand how art has played a role in your life in all those different ways that you've mentioned.
I really believe that because I hesitated to go and study art because I still had been socialized to believe that it's only a few get chosen. It's only a few who get chosen to be known in the world. It's only a few who get chosen to get into these special galleries. I went into college after I had my children. I finished college. My intent was I have to feed them, have milk money, have tires on the car, and it was like, I don't think I'm that good, I just don't think so. So I had always had the pleasure of doing lots of art in my life since I've been little. My parents, I was the only one. It was a very child-centered home, and I got exposed to tons of art through my parents. So I feel like I've been nurtured through my whole life with art. I've explored with art because my parents encouraged me to do anything I wanted to do. And so as I explored with felting and jewelry and baking and jewelry making and then tailoring and all the different handy arts that my mom was teaching me, it just propelled me on to other things that were going on. But also the act of choosing not to be a trained artist, I think, liberated me, because I knew that I did not want to go and do all this art and then haul it around and set it up at different places, and be really concerned about what people are going to like. I didn't want to paint for what people wanted to like. I just wanted people to either enjoy it. I feel that art is always a situation where your response to it is between I'm out of it. If you see something that I've done and it speaks to you, then that means that that energy is going down. That reflection is it's my reflection of why I did it, whatever. But if there's those what did he call them, Campbell? The archetypes, that are happening, and somebody can really feel something, then that's very fulfilling to me, because to me that's the sharing of art. That's what's really important to me.
We have a couple artists who, like Fusaro was telling us, that it's really liberating when you stop thinking about what should sell or what's the best type of work I should produce. But yeah, I like the way you approach it. Like, no, I'm gonna skip that and do it on my own
That's right.
and be free as to what to create and why, right?
Right.
Because it definitely changes. Like when you like pizza and then you start working at a pizza place,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you must start not liking pizza. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing with sometimes art or other
Right.
careers.
Right.
So-
And I didn't really want, and I started noticing that when I first got encouraged, like 30 years ago, to have a few shows. And then I became very aware of people who are successful in other business. It's like there's a grind to it. And my grind in life was already difficult enough for me. The art was always a relief for me, and a way my brain could talk to me. And that's what I wanted. So there was a rub there for me. And so my higher self kind of took care of that part of me. And I just kept working as I was in my field in education. And that's just how it's always been. Even now, right now, it's been years later that I've been doing this sort of thing for a big chunk of my life. And now I feel like it's different. I can choose what part of it that I want to do and pursue. And if it doesn't stand out, it's not because I don't want to stand out. It's just because I think I want to learn more about oils, or I want to learn more about pastels. It is something that I just want to go play with more things. But I refuse. It's just liberating and let go, because I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And I see the world, my brain and I see the world very differently. I've been told that when people have come to see my art, that it reminds like some professors of magical realism. I've been asked if I grew up in Mexico because I have so much of that in my art. And I think at that point I started realizing that it was the freedom that my mom and dad gave me. And it was exposing me, because they always had art magazines, these really fancy art magazines, big, glossy stuff, coming in from Mexico City to our house in Norwalk. I couldn't read any of the Spanish on it. I didn't do it, but all the prints fascinated me. And then they had lots of books on different cultural groups in Mexico that my parents had, like research books, and I loved tribal markings. And then all this different kind of stuff just started showing up. And then I think it was kind of like I didn't know, I stopped saying that I'm just a shitty drawer, sketcher, I can't draw for shit, I stopped saying those messages to myself, because then I realized that I can paint a creature any way I want to paint a creature. I don't care if the 4 legs are 5. I don't care if the nails are painted with fingernail polish. It's just different. And I think it's kind of like the anarchist in me or something. And it lets that part of me out. And I never, I can't say never, but most of the time, I never have an idea of what's going to happen when I paint. I don't use a photograph as a reference to do that. I always did say a prayer, get quiet, and then start releasing colors onto a big full sheet of watercolor paper. And then comes the fun of looking and seeing what I see. And that's what I paint into it. and then it grows and changes and morphs into other things, and that's how I have like a painting like that that's got all kinds of stuff going on, and I repeat that in a lot of my art, and that's been very therapeutic for me because after it's done, I go, oh damn, I didn't even know that I needed to hear that because the picture was talking to me, and that's about that, and of course that means that, and da 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 da, and oh, that must really be like a metaphor, symbolic for a person or something in my life. I can see the picture afterwards, but it's very free, it's very child centered, and that's how I like to do it.
Now that I mentioned that, I had always wonder, like, you always mentioned that you have a really fertile soil when it comes to your parents encouraging to, like, showing you these magazines or taking you to places or introducing you to ideas or art, and that's why you probably became an artist, right? So
Right.
my question is, how do you translate that into now that you have kids? Like, how do you did that kind of to your own kids or your own family?
Oh, I think that starts off in the very, very beginning of always letting them make decisions, of always letting them be scaffolded in the love that I would have for them, that I would appreciate that, even if they're 3 years old or 4 years old, because that strengthens their desires. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I think that if that's a constant, and that you always strengthen your child by letting them know they can do it, that they have the resources and the talent to do it, and that you believe in them. And then by getting them, when I could, extra paint of this, or you like to work in blocks, or you like to do this, that was for me my way of being able to help them grow to find their own bliss. And that's the way I think that it happened for me, and I think that that's a good way to help children really feel important, and that what they have to say and what they have to do is important to everybody.
Definitely.
Yeah. There's so many things that I hear you say that really resonate with me in the sense of like your artwork is something that allows you to play, that you feel liberated and that you feel uh, almost uninhibited when you create.
Yes.
And I'm curious to know, what was it that got you to that point? What moment can you point to in your experience and say, that's when I realized that that's how I needed to approach everything?
After I started, and then I recognized that I'm doing things very differently than any of the workshops I used to attend or any of the things on TV that I tried to do, it's like um, I began to recognize my own patterns at some point. And I think that the important thing, I think, for me that helped me change and grow with that is to totally internalize the thought of trust in the process. Not, because there's moments when you want to hate the picture, you want to rip it up, you want to throw the canvas. And no, because I now have, 30, some 40 years of painting, and I know that every time I save it and just dump it in a drawer or something, I come back to it and something magnificent happens in a year or four afterwards. So I think it's something that grows with you. The more you experience it, the more you internalize that, because at one point, Luis, it's become something like um, not just art. It becomes political reflection. Sometimes your art, and that becomes very philosophical in the painting. It becomes something that wants to get shared, and it's also uh, the act of letting go of grief or frustration, especially like, for example, during Trump's tenure. My art was like, for the first time, I was like really getting it out, and just letting whatever happened on the paper, and then I could just print into the paper. But it satisfies me, and it's just trusting in the process.
Since we're getting political, well, in a sense, right? In a sense, what does the term Chicana means to you?
I always identified as Chicana because I'm 75 years old, and I was, 17, 18, when the whole thing was 16, when they were walking out of the schools here and back in San Diego and, all around the nation. And then I was still in LA, and it gave me a tribe to belong to. So, all my political persuasions belong to that tribe. And if I was going to give, and I'm going to protest, and I'm going to write, and I'm going to march, and I'm going to like maybe die behind this shit, I did it. And because I moved from my mom and dad as Mexican Americans to, they had to deal with me going the other direction. They got nervous about it, but it was like I found my space where I could do and make and create change.
Uh, how do you define going in another direction, relative to your parents? What do you mean by that?
Oh, um, rejecting their parameters for what living is about and the rules that are associated with that to be successful, and stepping out of that domain and scaffolding my brain with different things so that I can go my direction. And luckily, if you believe in that and you get support, like parents probably did for me, in that I am uh, capable and that I have talents, and they just need to be shared. They did that, which sparked everything else that helped for me.
Interesting. Do you think that the way that your parents allowed you that freedom was intentional, or was that something that just because they were just naturally good parents? Did you ever get that insight?
I think I got that insight just recently. I think they both. My mom had a lot of art in her, in that she was doing all the handiwork things. My father was doing ceramics and woodwork and painting and building and landscaping and making all kinds of stuff for the house, and everybody supported everybody to do it, you know. So I think that I think that it was definitely okay. What I'm not talking about is, it was just this year that one of the things I recognized about my parents and completing the book of Little Shoes is that I think my parents indulged me with tons of things to try to take care of me. I think that was kind of like underneath it. And because I wasn't allowed to talk about it, which is really not a good thing, they, I think they put their whole life into helping me to grow into a healthy person.
I see. When you say to talk about it, you mean what the Little Shoes is about, right?
Experience of it.
Yes, as we're talking about that, 'cause, we have getting hints here and there about this book. Can you explain a little more about this book that you're creating?
Sure. Um, I'm creating a book. My whole intent was to do a children's book, and I wanted to be able to give to children who have gone through childhood trauma an experience, a book that could be shared, by way of their parents or by way of a therapist or whatever, the people who can support someone who's going through childhood trauma to have. And I wanted to, what made it very easy for me to write after I joined Fuentes y Cafe is that, I heard in the beginning, it always constantly, but it hit me in the beginning, that you're going to do your best writing if you go within and draw from your experiences. So it was easy for me to feel that because it all had been kind of smushed and contained inside. And so then I got to explore it, and I got to deal with the pieces of it. And something just said, do this book. And it's been in my mind for a long time. It's been very difficult to finish it. And because there was a lot of processing, because the book allowed me to um, vomit out feelings, reshape that mess, and keep what I wanted to keep, because some fears I learned protected me as an adult. It worked for me. I kind of, and then I kind of need it because I'm kind of have a little bit of a more fragile way because of being nervous with certain people and certain things. And so it was a it was like a myself talking to myself through my art.
Yeah, it's a lot of artists tend to do this. Like, I guess people who are not usually making too much art or haven't got the chance,
Mhm.
they keep things to themselves, especially traumas or feelings. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's the way we process things in our minds, maybe, or sometimes maybe talk with somebody. But
Mhm.
art has this way of us reflecting on that thought or trauma or joy or whatever
Right.
in a different way that we process it,
Right.
and that's therapeutic in itself.
Yes.
And then we also use it to put it outside for the world for somebody who hasn't had that chance
Yeah.
to see it and like, oh, I understand that kind of feeling now.
Yeah.
That's being put in this certain way,
Yes.
either music, paintings, or
Yes.
photography.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah.
tends to be.
Yeah. That's been my experience.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
How long had you been previously going to like workshops and other like taking classes and things like that before you started to feel like you were finding your style?
Um, I probably took my very first work class in a workshop in water medium when I was living in San Diego, and I remember Javi was like 3 years old, so it was 30 years ago, and that's when I first started. Like I didn't know about laying out a palette. You're supposed to do certain colors. I didn't know. I just memorized the names of all of them because they fascinated me. So I just looked for what's its face. I knew what I was looking for. Instead of having it arranged in a row, I didn't know about that. So it was those kind of things, how to take care of paper, how to take care of brushes, how to approach things and things you can add into them, all came from my workshops. And then I started coming up to self help from San Diego to some of their workshops. And that was an amazing experience for me because I was around like minded people. I saw people who were really creating, really into their passion, really focused, and like they were in the zone. And I loved seeing that. And then the support of self help was amazing to me. And then, being able to show there years later a few times was very special. But I think those workshops were my mini tiny little strand of going to art school. But I'm learning things that I had no idea what this tool was for, or I've been doing it just this way. I didn't know you could use this or this or this or this. So it's been a wonderful discovery for me, and it's been an opportunity to play with a lot more things.
That's great.
Yeah, I have the same thing. Like always trying to paint with different things, draw with different things, and either we're teaching with Luis or we're teaching somewhere else. Even if I don't know the specific thing, I go for it and teach it, just learning it and then going for it. So it's always that curiosity of playing with different things. I like that.
Yeah, me too.
And just because I have this one in my hand, which
Yeah.
is Longing for the Moon.
Mhm.
I know you did this project with David.
Mhm.
Can you tell us about how you guys managed to make this cover? Because he wrote this book and you helped him with the cover. How was that process of talking with him and arranging this?
Well, it was not a collaboration like that at all. He came up to me and he had seen my big one that I brought to class or something. It was a full size piece, and later he talked to me. He says, I've been looking at this and appreciating it. And I don't know if you would consider this, but could I use this for the cover?" And I said, "Because it really speaks to me about the content of my stuff." I said, "Absolutely, use it." So that's how that happened. He connected, like we were talking about what happens when something else happens, and he knew that because I guess I had the planet in the back, I had orbs around it. It was kind of like it just really speaks to me, Susie. I said, "Well, then it's yours. Use it for the cover."
See, that's always good. Like to keep watching and
It
talk
makes-
to the other artists.
Yeah. I think I would get nervous if somebody said, "Could you illustrate a book for me?" I don't have practice being an artist like that. You know, to commission somebody to draw a picture of something. No, no. I would work with somebody. I think I feel good enough to do that now.
And it goes back to like maybe you haven't done it, you know.
Exactly.
It's always like jump for it. Why not,
Yeah.
right? If it
Well,
comes
it's
up good
beautiful
enough.
because doing a cover art for a book is like, oh, you were the cover art for this, and then I learned about that part of it too. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So that's been good. That's been good. Some of my art, in the same way, a little bit like that, has been used by some of the doctors over at USC, and uh, because I have done the dance of drawing my body in different ways to be still love my back, even though it's so stressed out with my spine. It's just that I don't want to dislike my body. So if I paint beautiful pictures of flowers growing out of my ribs and things like that, it's like I'm trying to connect with that part and love my body back. So it's sort of like another kind of medicine for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Miss Susie, we're gonna obviously do a quick little walkthrough here
Okay.
of your home and your home studio.
Okay.
We definitely want to hear you talk a little bit about some of the pieces that you have up on your walls.
Yes.
Okay.
Because your home is definitely full of a lot of beautiful work that you've created. So,
Thank you.
If you could just give us some insight into maybe some of the subjects that you've chosen and why they were important for you.
This is one that I did many years ago when I first started going to self-help. It was a drawing that I did over a monoprint. So all of these background colors, those were on the monoprint that I did at self-help. And they encouraged you to take them, live with them a while, and then go for it, whatever you want to do on top. So that was very freeing. And that's really a self-reflection. That's something that I was kind of tough. I was in my 20s. You know, I didn't take shit from people. And that's what she was going to say. And this is kind of like around the time of Dia de los Muertos. And so I just sort of went for it. And I loved that her legs were thick and chubby. And I was always nervous about my legs. So it was like she went for it. I didn't, but she did, you know. This is one of the few oil paintings. It's unfinished. But this is also a self-portrait of me when I felt like when I was younger and my hair was starting to turn gray, you know, and the oils were a big, beautiful new thing. I didn't have any help with, I wasn't going to any classes with it. I just bought some. And it was a different medium from watercolors because I've been playing with watercolors for years. And I love the experience, but I have only 4 experiences, except now that I've been with Margaret Garcia, I'm painting in oils much more. But before that, I only done 4 paintings with oil.
You mentioned a minute ago that you felt uncomfortable with like your body and.
Oh yeah, because I was always struggling with weight, and I was always wanting to be cute. I thought I was cute, but what's the deal here? You know, so it was like, and I was, you know, you start questioning things, the politicalness of your sexuality, the influence of society's restrictions have on you. You know, we're supposed to be the caregivers. We're supposed to be the quiet and soft ones. And that is not the personality of somebody who's a soft and quiet one. And that wasn't really me. Part of me is, but I wanted to feel okay that I'm like that. So that the painting let me feel it.
Good. Do you feel like that's something that is important for other young artists?
I think it's important for every child to be able to do themselves the way they want and to let somebody appreciate how they see themselves and to not judge them and not tell them that they're using the wrong colors or, you know, why would you do that? You know, I've been in schools where I've heard teachers say, there's no pink sun, there's no pink clouds, you know, and she tossed it and made him start over again. I know. So, I mean, there's, you know, that's the stuff. This one is a watercolor, and it was a time when I was reflecting, and I think I was more into my scholarly period of my life and, you know, really, you know, exploring different theoretical things in my career. But I'm fascinated by the back door opening, and I don't know if it's fire or the fire of life or something to be feared. I didn't feel like it feared me. It just felt like I was coming for some kind of in-depth thing going on. Yeah. But there was a calmness, almost like a novitiate in a convent or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I just went for it. This watercolor is really important to me because this is something that I had created before I started Little Shoes. It was in my mind. I was already processing it. And this is sort of like what helped me get to, I want to do a book. And the eyes is supposed to be from me looking into a tree. And when I looked into a tree or the bush, these are all the things I saw. Because when I was little, and I think part of the impact of the trauma was that I started living in my backyard big elm tree, high, hidden, with thousands of leaves protecting me. No one could get to me, and I would see anybody coming in through the yard. And I was very, very happy in my tree. And I had a wonderful time being and talking and pretending that there was uh, princesses and queens, warriors, planters, growers, all in the tree. Like every little part of the tree had the different tribe that there was going on. So I was being entertained up there. And I was all in my imagination, but I spent a lot of hours and a lot of years up in the big tree. And this painting is just sort of like the magical feeling that I got when I was in there.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Little Shoes is about basically the story of your very brief kidnapping.
Yep.
And not to like
Yep.
spoil it for anybody that's looking forward to buying the book, but that is what it is about. And in a lot of ways, you referenced the fact that your childhood has allowed you to explore different elements of your creativity and things like that. And then there's traumas that you also have referenced that have informed your creativity. For you as an artist at this point in your career, how do you feel like those things are forming some sort of synergy in your creative process?
That's beautiful. It's for me to notice that. If I don't notice that, then it doesn't happen. But I think that the synergy comes from the praxis. It's from the action to from the thought to the action. So it's a way of constantly allowing yourself to have support around you and a piece to reflect on. Yeah.
Do you view your artwork like a form of support for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's another language that I've learned to speak. Not artistic terms, but just knowing that my brain will go with the flow. Because none of that was I drew a horse or I drew a couple down there or a bird or something. I didn't think of any of that. First comes all the mush of colors. And then comes what's coming out of my psyche that really needs to get talked about. But I was celebrating the thought, I love this because it reminds me of being in the tree. And then years later, then I realized, oh my God, you're still in the tree. When you get upset or you get nervous or anxious about stuff, I'll retreat and I think it's going into the tree. It's just I sort of like isolate myself. I get anxious about stuff, but yeah, it's helped me know that, okay, we don't need to do that anymore. Yeah. Well, this is my studio. This is where I work. I've been mostly working in watercolors for a lot of years, but I'm trying to do a few oils now and learn how that process goes. And these are some of the things that have kind of grown from it. Again, it's just another way of, okay. Animal self-portraits are something that has been really a treat for me. I just let myself go with it when I'm struggling at a certain juncture in my life. And then what do I need from it? What do I need if I were an animal that would help make me feel better in the world? So this is supposed to be like an lion cat goddess kind of sphinx deal, but her toes, you know, like an animal when they're relaxing and they're happy or in catnip and you're a cat, it's like feeling the soothness of the earth, even though she was strong, but she needed to calm down, and she got her experience through her feeling it, you know, and bringing the calmness to her. So that's what I do. I come up with all kinds of different animals I would want to be at a moment that would give me the power to get through whatever the adversity was in my week.
Hmm.
So that's been a practice I've been going through.
Is that something that's more recent in your
No, I've been doing animal self-portraits for as long as I've been painting.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is
Um,
that like a exercise that you learned, or was that just something that came naturally to you?
that just came naturally.
Oh, interesting. What do you think inspired that particular activity or exercise?
I think our brains will take us to the right place to resolve issues. I think our brains we were born with the materials to solve problems, you know? And I think my brain just came up with an idea and I thought it was a good one. And then I always felt better after I painted it. And then I knew what it was about.
Interesting. So we do have the very lucky opportunity here to actually be in your studio. How would you describe your average day when you come in and decide to create something new? How does your process start within this space?
I try to always, when I get centered and I sit down and I'm going to do my work, I always try to connect with on a spiritual level and say just a quiet kind of prayer to myself and thanking my body and my brain for letting me do this. And I've always referred to God as mother, so I'm always speaking to the mother, and then I go for it.
If you could give any kind of advice to anyone at any age and they want to begin expressing themselves in a creative manner, what would that advice be?
Break the rules. There are no rules in art, only make. Do not try to critique or think, is this good or not? Just make, because being creative and critiquing are two separate processes. That's what I told children in my second grade.
Awesome. And for anybody that's interested in seeing your artwork, do you have any kind of way in which they can interact with your work, either online, or do you have any art shows that are coming up?
Well, I'm probably going to be in another art show after a couple of months at the Plaza La Raza again. And I've also been invited to once Little Shoes is done, maybe have a show at Margaret Garcia's studio. She's offered to do that for me. So that would be very nice. She's been very supportive.
That's great.
I know. Yeah. So, and I'm on Instagram, and most of my art is on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook.
How can people find you for those who are either watching or listening?
Okay, I'm Chicana Susie on Instagram, and I'm Susie Chavez on Facebook.
There you go.
All right. And any final parting words, Abraham?
I would like to ask, what's next? What is your next step towards creating? Do you have something in mind? Some challenge ahead?
Yes, the challenge that I want to gift myself with is to really start to feel comfortable in oils, to go outside of my comfort zone with watercolors. I love the fluidity of it. I love all of that with watercolors, but it's a whole different process. So I want to try that. And the other thing is that as I come to a closure on Little Shoes, I really have more books in me. I have done so much little poems on the side as I was writing the book. I think I have another book of poetry that's just that helped me get through the process of doing it, you know? So I would like to do that, and I would like to move forward with anything else that grows from it that would support kids. I would like to do more things that would support children and other people who are interested in art.
It's amazing. And well, we're so thankful that you brought us here to
Oh,
check your work in your studio and talking to you. It's always a
thank
pleasure.
you. Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Susie.
You're
And,
welcome. It's been a pleasure doing this with you.
Yeah, likewise. And, for those who are still listening and watching, Little Shoes will be published by DSTL Arts in the coming months as the Poet Artist Development Program kind of closes out its current program year. So, we'll be making those announcements through our newsletter, through our social media, all of that stuff. So make sure that you're following at DSTL Arts at DSTL Arts on all the major social media. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. All of that stuff really does help. And make sure that you follow Miss Susie at Chicana Susie on Instagram and at
Susie Chavez.
Chavez on Facebook. And Abraham, of course, you can always follow Abraham using Abraham_photo world on Instagram and all the other good stuff. And of course, you can follow me if you're listening on at Stymie Loved One. But for sure, follow at DSTL Arts at DSTL Arts. And with that, we'll call it a session. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity.
Take care, everybody. Abraham.
Peace
say
out.
peace
Peace out.
You.